There's Tom and Bev in New
Evening,
Mexico.
Tom and Bev. We can't hear you, Bev.
There.
Not
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's hard work to get the words out.
Are you warm in New Mexico? Is it
No, we got snow. It's
really? Oh gosh.
Not much, but the sun was out. It's now evening here. So
Okay.
it helps to see the sun.
Be nice, be lovely.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about you, Anne? How are things?
Things are well here, thank you. We've had a very snowy week. It's been great. Just before Christmas. It snowed just before Christmas, and it lasted beautifully until yesterday. And now it's sort of melting and getting a bit rainy, and we're getting to the messy stage.
Yes.
But it's been lovely. We were very fortunate.
Good.
How is the Omicron down where you are?
Hard to say. I mean, people here have been pretty good wearing masks in the stores, so, and we don't go out. I mean, if we go out, we wear our masks.
Mm-hmm.
And so.
in stores, not outside.
Not,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
So, luckily, I think Omicron is not as dangerous a variant as Delta.
Right.
But still, there's so many people who are unvaccinated in hospitals. I don't know. It's karmic.
Well, there are lots of people here with it, and lots of people, not as many as before, but certainly people in hospitals, many of whom are double and triple vaccinated.
Yes,
so.
yes.
But most
Anyway, we all do our best and carry on.
most people in hospitals have not been vaccinated by majority. It's a very small minority that need to be hospitalized if they've been vaccinated.
Okay.
Very small. Yeah.
I wouldn't be so sure of that.
Well, why not?
That was Sundara, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, we are all fortunate to be able to keep going and doing what we do. Well, we can't do what we do around here. We're not locked down here, but we're definitely being under big restrictions.
Sawadee-ka.
Ajahn.
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับสวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์ And hello everybody.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi, Anne.
We've got 13 here, and we're past starting time. So would anyone like to start with a question or some area of interest? Nothing? Well, I've got something to raise, and I'm not very articulate about it yet. It's on the subject of nimitta, that there's been a lot discussed in the past couple of weeks on the website. My question, Ajahn, is, does nimitta, which arises, the nimitta of well, let's take seeing invisible object. So the nimitta of either seeing or visible object will arise in the mind door. And does that nimitta arise and then fall away with just one moment of citta?
Does nimitta arise?
Right. No, it doesn't. Or
So
does it? No, I
just
don't
close
think it
your
does.
eyes now, where everything which has been seen.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first of your question, Ajahn.
Excuse คุณบริษัทเสียงเบามากนะฮะ Yeah. Please close your eyes now. Is there any nimitta?
No.
So we understand what is meant by nimitta. What is there while one is closing one's eyes?
Is there nimitta?
Just the truth. We don't use any name yet. Just what is there. As soon as one opens one's eyes, what is there? And as soon as one closes one's eye, what is there? So we understand what is meant by nimitta. No body is seen while one is closing one's eyes. But
Right.
as soon as one opens one's eyes, everything is there. How come? That's why nimitta does not arise at all. But seeing does not arise, and that which is seen is not there at moment of closing one's eyes. But what is there? There must be the reality which experiences, but the object is not known because it does not appear. There's no nimitta of the object which is seen, but there is still the nimitta of that which experiences. Even it's not seeing, it's not hearing, but it's there. A reality which is there, which experiences, but the object does not appear. But the nimitta of that which experiences is there. That's why we learn to understand what is there in daily life. They are all Dhamma, but since no word about the truth of it, even as soon as one closes one's eyes, naturally, that what is seen is not there anymore. Nothing is seen while one closes one's eyes, but there still, when it's not thinking yet, there is the reality which experiences, and that also arises. Otherwise, it's not there. And it has to arise in false way in split second continuously. So it seems like there is, we don't know what, but actually it is the reality which experiences. We don't know because the object does not appear, but that is the nimitta of the reality which arises and experience to be known when there is panya more and more to let go the ignorance of that moment which is there as I. Even it just experiences, even the object does not appear, but it experiences. As soon as there is the reality which experiences, ignorance is there and is taken for I instantly, unknowingly, from life to life, from moment to moment. That's why to understand the words of the truth, it has to be known that the word of the truth of now, each moment now, as it is, different all the time. Seeing is not thinking, and there must be the nimitta of that which is there, because the nature which arises in all and false way does not appear at all to be known. That's why we learn to understand what is there, little by little, and that in order to understand the truth of it, what is that? There must be the reality which experiences an object for sure, even the object does not appear. And even while the object is appearing, the reality which experiences it is the unknown. because there is just the attention to that which appears as object, neglect the understanding or thinking about that which experiences from birth to life, arising and falling away all the time by conditions. No one can stop it at all because there is no one to learn to understand what is it which we take for me or thing. Because is there really I? What is I? See, learn to understand the reality which is Dhamma, the truth of that which experiences cannot be taken for anything because it's gone instantly all the time. That's why we begin to understand the world, the nimitta. We live in the world of nimitta all the time. Thinking, taking what is there as something. Well, it's not there anymore, gone. But the other reality which follows condition the nimitta of something. So it's I of someone or something all the time. In truth, nothing is there because as soon as it has arisen, it's gone instantly. So all the words of the teaching of the Buddha just talk about the truth of each reality right now to be known in order to understand the absolute truth. Actually, there is nothing. Sunyata, anatta, cannot be taken for anything permanent or real at all because it's only the nimitta of that which arises and falls away. No matter nama, the reality which experiences, or the reality which cannot experience. Each arises and falls away by its nature, not under anyone's control. From birth to death in this life and then the next one, conditioned by what has been accumulated in this life and eons ago, to be the new one. Who knows? What's that? When it's not there yet, it cannot be known. For now, there is seeing, hearing, on and on and on and on, and kamma, wholesome deeds or unwholesome deeds, which will condition the next one, not this one anymore. That's why no I even in this life, because it has to be gone when time comes to be the next one, unknown again, for a period of life, and then gone again, and then new again, and then gone again. No body, no one at all, only the different conditioned realities. And is this true? When it's true, it is right understanding of the truth which can develop to experience the truth of it so it can let go the idea of self of thing permanently, absolutely. The truth is the truth. It depends on how much one takes it as it's not important or it's better to understand. Because who knows when will the death moment? It can be next moment. So what about now? Is it better to understand the truth or none at all? The blind one from life to life, not understanding what is there in life. So just develop the understanding. Dhamma is so very subtle. That's the word of the Buddha after his enlightenment. So, and what is subtle now? See, and where is that which is subtle? It has to be this very moment. Seeing is so subtle. Who knows that it's just a moment of experiencing, conditioned to arise to just see and then gone. Hearing is the other reality, conditioned to arise to hear and then gone. From moment to moment, where's the I? Not in this life or any life at all. Is this not true? When it's true, it can be the object which can be discerned its truth right now. That is the certainty of what Buddha said after his enlightenment. Dhamma, everything which is real at this very moment or any time, is so subtle because it has to be right understanding which let go the idea of something which has been accumulated life to life so very, very thick. It's important. It cannot be eradicated instantly. That's why Buddha taught about what is there now for 45 years to condition moment of understanding, little by little, to we don't know when, but when the condition is right enough, at that moment, it is the understanding and realizing the truth, stage by stage, unknowingly. So this moment, how much understanding has been accumulated from a moment, just in a moment, can develop on and on and on until the satya, to be truthful to the truth, how much understanding, or is it the understanding which understand the truth of seeing right now as it's conditioned to arise and see, only then, and then gone. Everything is just not permanent. All dhammas, all sankhara dhammas, everything anatta. No one and nothing in it. Otherwise, the word enlightenment will not have any meaning at all. But it means the moment of realization of the truth of what is there, which is so very subtle, because the arising and following here is so very rapidly, and it conditions the shape and form because of the arising and falling away is so very rapidly. No one can understand just a moment of a reality which arises and falls away. But since so rapidly it's there as one thing, like seeing right now, but in truth, it's not just a moment of seeing. And the truth can be realized, but not with ignorance, not understanding what is there. That's why it has to be very confidence, firm confidence of the truth. Nobody can change seeing right now to be other thing. Hearing is not seeing, and thinking is not seeing or hearing at all. They are there in life from moment to moment, which when there is ignorance, ignorance cannot understand the truth of whatever is there. But to associate with the wise one in Mangala Sutta brings about the understanding of the truth, listening, associating with the words of wise, of wisdom. And that moment understanding, which is ourselves, the new life in samsara, from ignorance to begin to understand the truth, which is so very, very dark right now, because only one reality, which is light, is that which appears to seeing. See, this is life from moment to moment, from birth up to death, on and on. Non-stop, as long as there are conditions for what is there now has arisen and fallen away. Just very ordinary, very natural. Even wrong understanding is a reality. Ignorance is a reality. Right understanding is a reality, arising and falling away. No one there at all. This life, one is this person. What about next life? Who knows? And it can be at any moment. Right now, or after this, or tomorrow, or next year. We don't know. So the best thing in life is to understand the truth that can be realized. When time comes, when there are right conditions, understanding in a moment, let go the ignorance and attachment little by little, so very, very little. But it's there as condition for more confidence, more understanding, to be able to realize the truth. And that is parami. Without parami, it's impossible to be true to the truth, to be truthful to the truth right now. Develops So it can condition moment of being aware, and the development of understanding begin to understand the characteristic which now is appearing, to understand it little by little. Otherwise, it's useless if we learn a lot, but that cannot condition moment of right understanding of what is there now. But without the idea of self, that's why it's so very subtle. The path, the last one of the Four Noble Truths, has to be also very subtle too, because no one think about it. Some people might think that one has to try so hard, spend all one's time to think about this. That is not the right path because it's motivated by the clinging to the self so very strong. It conditioned this way or that way all the time when there is not right understanding of letting go. But not anyone, only right understanding of that which is now appearing can perform its function, understanding, and the understanding let go what has been accumulated in years to cover up the truth of that which is very subtle, the arising and falling away of whatever, because it can be understood. This moment is different from previous moment. The thought, the object, and everything is not the same one at all. This moment is not the same moment of the last moment. So what is there in last moment cannot be at this moment. And by understanding the truth, which is not easy at all, so very subtle, it conditioned moment of just develop, just not I, but the right understanding sees that it's better in life not to understand anything, but understanding of what is there, developing by itself. This is the way to let go, the clinging to the idea of self. Or I see now, I hear now. How can it let go? That it's not I who see and it's not I who hear, because they are gone instantly, all the time, unknowingly. That's why right understanding, even it's just beginning to hear, to listen to the truth, it is that which can develop to the moment of realization of the truth of what is heard. Because there are conditions for many people in the Buddha's time to realize the truth. So what about now? See, as long as the word of truth is still there to listen to consider, at that moment, no one. It's the development of right understanding and all other wholesome cetasikas, mental factor, arising together. Wise considering is not the panya. That's why Buddha pointed out the truth of cetasika, mental factor. No doubt about anything when there is moment of hearing, listening, and considering. Is it true? When it's true, at that moment, it develops little by little to be able to understand what is true and what is not true. Each word of the truth can condition moment of understanding when there is wise considering. Right now.
John, not even a minute ago, I may have misheard what you said. What I thought I heard was that wise considering is not banya.
Panya. Manasikara. We used to so manasikara in Thai.
Yes.
Thai use this word all the time. It's so very hit of, very popular. But what's the meaning? Each cetasika is very subtle. like chanda and lopasi. If they don't know, they use that word that they don't understand. The Thai use the word sati almost any time when they drive or cross the road and so on, but no understanding of the word. Even at school, the teacher said that this people, this one is so wise, but what is that? From birth to death, there is ignorance. And so speak out with ignorance. It cannot be the truth of that word until each word has its own meaning to understand what is there as it is. That's why we can cite teachings in Thai. It is many more, it is so popular to cite the teaching, the word of teachings, but no understanding. So what's the truth? So each word, even it's there, it takes time to study all around in order to understand the truth of it, that it agrees in all aspects. Otherwise, it's not the truth yet. It's not right understanding yet. That's why we have to study each word carefully, because the word is so subtle, because it represents the subtle realities.
When we talk about yoniso manasikara, wise attention, I guess one with more understanding, one will understand when it's wise attention and when it isn't. Because sometimes just thinking about the Dhamma may be wise attention, may not.
Okay, at this moment, what is Dhamma? Right understanding, panya, or just begin to attend, to study, to consider what is it?
Beginning to study and consider what is it, yes.
Mm-hmm. That's why even listening to the teaching, Buddha taught about how come right understanding. That at moment of hearing, there must be the sanya, which marks and remembers the meaning of the word, and there must be attention to that word to know what does it mean, and also what Buddha taught about this. What did he say about this? Just one's own thought. One thinks that one can understand that, but it's not perfect. It's not the absolute truth. It's just estimation or speculation about what is that. For example, right now, they're saying, is it speculation? What is it? Or the moment of hearing, considering, it's a reality. This is the first. It's real. But what is it? It sees, see, beginning little by little to understand, to question until the truth is there, to have firm confidence of the truth that there is no one. Seeing is seeing. Who can see if seeing does not arise? But when it has arisen, no understanding, ignorance is there. So what is there as a reality which experiences? It's me at that very moment, because not anyone at all, not anything at all. It's only that which experiences. So what can it be? It's me all the time because of ignorance.
Yeah.
That is asava.
Yes. Always creeps in.
That's why be as usual as in one's daily life. Nothing changed because no one can change, but there are conditions for whatever arises to be known or not to be known, depending on accumulation and wise considering what is better or what is the best thing in life, because life is so short. It can be this moment. That's why Buddha asked Ananda, how much your attention of Satipatthana is there in the day. Heedless or careful.
Heedless or careful in terms of how much satipatthana in a day. Is that what you just said, Ajahn?
Because at this moment, can Satipatthana arise
Can.
without understanding enough?
No. Only if there are conditions, and understanding is one of the conditions, the main condition.
So is it there now? Depending on conditions. See, when there is the understanding of Satipatthana is enough to know what moment is Satipatthana and what moment is not Satipatthana.
Right.
What is Satipatthana from the very beginning? Without understanding enough, can there be condition to understand what is there, which is hard?
No.
See? So it depends on conditions, because no one at all is a conditioned world.
Right.
So anything is there already, no matter it's moment of crying, liking, pleasant feeling, any situation, or dhammas, or are there by conditions already. Even the thinking I can do is conditioned already. And what conditions such idea of thinking? No one can change at all because it's gone instantly as soon as it's there.
Right. It's to deeply understand what you've just said, that it's all by conditions and that no one can change is so contrary to what we've grown up with, to what we've understood until we listen to the Buddha's teachings. And even after listening for quite a while and thinking and considering it, one slips so easily back into thinking that slips into forgetting the truth that we've heard. It's a long road.
And right understanding understands everything as it is. Why people in the Buddha's time and became enlightened so very soon, because of the accumulation from life to life, to understand it when one is heard about that what is there as it is at this very moment. Right understanding is different by conditions. So it cannot just arise, but it needs parami in any situation to understand what is there as not self. The reality which can experience the object is not just citta, the chief of experience, the characteristic of the object clearly, but the other mental factor arising together as conditions. Every moment perform different function of each one. Who knows? They are all dhammas, no one there at all. Right understanding does not belong to anyone. It's just right understanding. And this is a letting go of no matter what in a day in life. But if there's no hearing, listening carefully, it's impossible to condition the understanding of what is there now, at this moment. Touching, thinking, hearing, seeing, all are there. See? No understanding from moment to moment in life. So how long will it go? Again and again and again, rolling on with ignorance and attachment. But there are Ariya Satya when Panya can understand it as it is, stage by stage, clearer and clearer, until nothing can cover up the truth, because Panya is so sharp that it letting go what is there as it is. No one. But if it does not show up, how can there be the idea, the right understanding, so very sharp to let go what is there now as something or I? For 45 years, Buddha taught about the truth of what is there. Enough before he died for anyone to just listen carefully and develop understanding, very confidence of no one from the very beginning and nothing. It's the world of the absolute truth, conditioned by different conditions, arising and falling away in split seconds. So what appears is only nimitta of everything. It's the world of nimitta.
Yes.
Understanding as it is, as no one, or with ignorance, taking nimitta for something very, very firm, very, very strong. It's there, it's a rose, it's the bed, it's a curtain, and so on.
Just to come back to the first point and one or two of the details, because I think there are a lot of there's a lot of confusion on the topic, and so it's a good point that Anne has brought up. So the citta, which experiences the impression or the sign or the detail, arises and falls away, but the impression, the mark, the color, the idea of someone there doesn't arise and fall away. So each citta rises and falls away. So the nimitta experienced is different at each moment. Now we know that in some cases, like in jhana, the same nimitta is repeatedly experienced by the different cittas, but still each citta arises and falls away. And on the point about when the eyes are closed, so even when the eyes are closed, the seeing still has to experience what is visible, the darkness at that moment. But because there's no light, there are no features, no signs, no colors determined. So that's why when Ajahn mentioned when the eyes are closed, nothing is seen. Well, the visible object is seen, but there's no impression of a table or a chair or a person or any color at all. So because someone asked the same question on our list, oh, Ajahn says nothing is seen, but when the eyes are closed, still darkness is seen. Yes, it's visible, but no nimitta appears of what is seen. And
can I just stop you there for a second,
yes.
Sarah? You say no nimitta is there of what is seen, and by using nimitta in that sense, do you mean what do we call it? Details and
no sign, because usually as soon as the visible object is experienced, there's the impression of sign, mark, color, detail. But when the eyes are closed and there's no light, no color, then no nimitta is discerned. So no
is that by that
impression
nimitta
of what is, sorry?
Right. Is that what you've referred to in the past sometimes as nimitta anubhyanjana?
Nimitta anubhyanjana, exactly. So anubhyanjana are the finer details, like when looking at the picture behind you, and then there can be the discerning of the clouds or the trees or the features. These are the anubhyanjana, the details of what is seen. So when the eyes are closed and there's just darkness, there cannot be any determining of any, there are no details to be determined at all.
No details.
So there's no,
is there
no
not
impression.
Nonetheless a nimitta?
Sorry?
Is there not is there, I would think there would still be a nimitta, although not the nimitta anubhyanjana.
So even the nimitta is the sign of what is seen.
Okay.
But when the eyes are closed, what is the sign? Because there's no light, so there's not even a sign of color or a sign of any shapes at all. So not even an initial sign of what is seen at all. It's just that.
Darkness.
Sorry?
Darkness, the color of darkness.
That is just what is seen, but no, in order for there to be any sign or impression of it, there needs to be the nimitta. So
There needs to be light, yeah.
yes. So I think this is what is meant. So there has to be visible objects seen if there is seeing, but no impression, no form, no shape at all.
Right.
So
right.
no nimitta and no anubhyanjana, no finer detail at all. So no thinking about, so no nimitta of what is seen leading to any thinking about table or chair or person as a result. So it's quite a fine point. And another fine point, Ajahn, another question is, we were discussing.
Sir, can I?
Yes.
Yeah, but as Anne was asking about the darkness, it would still be the nimitta of the reality, because one moment cannot be seen. So we're talking about nimitta as in many moments. The circle, the example of the fire stick. So the darkness would still be nimitta in that sense, no?
Well, let's ask Ajahn, because when she was talking about no nimitta of what is seen, what I understood was because there's no light, no sign, no feature, this is why there is no nimitta of what is seen at that moment. Ajahn, would you like to come into Sukhin's point?
And before Ajahn comes in, I would like to also just make a quick comment or question for Ajahn. I was a little surprised to hear Ajahn say that to Anne, that nimitta is what appears when you open your eyes after they've been closed, because I thought previously we'd discussed that it was concept that appeared, because as Ajahn has explained, their thinking follows instantly from the experiencing of the sense door object. And there's already an idea of an image, a computer screen and faces on the computer when one opens one's eyes. There's no moment, no other moment between when the eyes are closed and when they're open, and that's what's being seen. So I wonder if Ajahn could comment on that. And also, Ajahn, you say we live in the world of nimitta, and previously we've said we live in the world of concepts. So I'm wondering is there still a distinction to be made between concepts and nimitta when we're talking like this? Thank you, Ajahn.
Buddha said the rupa nimitta, vedana nimitta, sanya nimitta, sankhara nimitta, and vinyana nimitta. It means that as long as or as soon as whatever arises and falls away so very fast, one moment of seeing cannot be known, because according to the process of seeing, what followed seeing cannot be right understanding or satipatthana. It has to be by condition to be the moment of receiving the object which seeing has experienced, because that object is still there and it doesn't fall away yet. So the citta which follows in the process has to be sampaditana and so on. That's why what does not have nimitta is only nibbana. That's why we have to understand how rapidity a reality, no matter what it is, nama or rupa, arises and falls away in split second. And what can be known is has to be viticitta, the process of experiencing an object. Even right now, how many citta follow one another all the time, all the time. That's why even at moment of closing one's eyes, the rupa does not appear. We don't talk about darkness because at that moment, as long as it's known as dark, it is because of seeing light and dark. But when there's no seeing at all, what is there? It's nimitta of the reality which arises and falls away. And since the object does not appear, what is there? Closing one's eye, no seeing at all. We don't think about what can be seen like as blue or white or yellow at all. Very not so, not like at moment when it's seen. So remember that what is there arises and falls away in split second. Only one cannot be known. Seeing right now, who can know the actual moment of one seeing? Impossible. So now at moment of seeing, it's nimitta of seeing. And the object which is seen, it's the nimitta of that which arises and falls away too. So this is so subtle that Buddha said after his enlightenment, all dhammas are so subtle. That's why even right now, at moment of nothing appear, that if we don't talk about after seeing or hearing, after sleeping, one wakes up, even the object is not there as sound or smell or visible object or anything, but the reality which just arises to experience, it can be known. While there can be, but while the understanding of the reality as not self is there, it can condition moment of understanding that experience as it is only the reality which experience, the chief of experience, no matter the object appears or not appear. Because the object is experiencing, the nature which experience the citta can be the object of understanding. But when there's no understanding, no one think about it or be aware of it or to be mindful or attend to it at all. It just go on with ignorance. That's why learning to understand what is there, no matter what. Only one single reality cannot be known because they appear as nimitta of that reality. For example, we don't talk about shape and form and the details of things around, just talk about a reality. Even so, when it's the object, it's not only one single reality, but what can appear is only the characteristic of that, but it arises and falls away in split second. So what appears is the nimitta of a single reality, but not single one. And this is the Tipitaka. But
Ajahn, yes, thank you. But that is if there's awareness and understanding, right? Where you say when the reality is known, that requires panya, of course. And so at that moment, we are talking about it's the nimitta of the reality that is known by awareness and understanding. But when there's just seeing, for example, there's no understanding of reality. So
intellectual about it, intellectual understanding of the truth. Otherwise, how can there be the understanding of different moments of being aware and no awareness? That's why what we talk has to be true from the very beginning to the end. It does mean that it's true in the beginning, but it's not there at the end. Impossible. So what is taught by the Buddha, intellectual level, is so very beautiful because it's so true, absolutely true to what is there, that nobody can deny the truth at all. If they think that it's not that way, but seeing right now, it's nimitta of seeing. So even citta is the nimitta of vijnana, the five khandhas. Rupa nimitta, never change. Vedana nimitta never change. Sanya nimitta never change. Sankhara nimitta, cetasikas, never change. Vijnana nimitta never change. So what is there which has no nimitta is only nibbana, because it doesn't arise. Whatever arises falls away in split seconds. So what appear has to be the nimitta of a reality, even when there is awareness. It has to be aware of a reality, which is nimitta already. For the first vipassana jhana, the arising and falling away does not appear because panya is not strong enough, firm enough to let go. It let go just ignorance about the characteristic of nama, that which experiences, and that which is cannot experience anything. Nama and rupa are distinct, are different ones. That's why we learn to understand that what is there is nimitta, how ignorance is there. Even there is a hearing, listening to the teachings, but it has to be more and more and more and more, not enough to condition, to turn from the ignorance, turn away from ignorance little by little, to understand the truth. But when the truth is not true by the listeners or the one who listen to the word, but not enough considering. That's why there are so many wrong understanding and wrong. And what they say, samnak patipat, the meditation center and practice and so on, not understanding what is there at all. Just the self would like so much to experience, but no understanding of what is there, even right now. So when there's no understanding of what is there right now, how can there be the understanding of whatever is there? No matter when and where and what. That's why each word cannot be changed, because it's so very subtle and it is the absolute truth. That's why only one single reality cannot be experienced according to processes, no matter it's mind or the sensor. Panya cannot just get in between the process at all. It has to follow. Because the way it is, even Buddha couldn't change anything at all. That's why he taught about the truth of everything, that it's there by conditions and what is what. That's why when he used the word rupa nimitta, what does it mean? Right now or any time. Even the hardness experienced, the hardness itself, not only one single particle. And even what it said, it arises and falls away, just like moment of seeing or hearing or thinking right now. The moment of arising and falling away does not appear. Even the absolute truth is that it's so very, very quick and very, very short, arising and falling away. So what is left to be known is that as shape and form of everything which is experienced. That's why sanya has wrong sanya, distorted, not understanding the truth. Just have vipalasa, sanya vipalasa, taking what is there as some permanent thing. We use the word permanent, even just what is there. The arising and falling away hasn't experienced directly. Even experienced directly, it's the experiencing of nimitta. That's why one learns to understand what is meant by nimitta and what is meant by the world of nimitta. Because world is that which arises and falls away. If nothing arises, no world. But what is there arises is world, arising and falling away in split second. So everything appears as soon as one opens one's eyes. But right understanding can develop to understand the difference, which is not self. The seeing is conditioned to arise, and the object which is seen also arise. Otherwise, it's not there as the object. That's why the world of nimitta no matter any world, because nobody can change the way Nama is conditioned to arise and fall away, and the Rupa also conditioned. What is there is nimitta of that which is conditioned, and only a single particle cannot be experienced by way of the processes. So now we live in the world of nimitta. Otherwise, there cannot be understanding how much ignorance is there from life to life, eons and eons ago. But from the teachings of the Buddha, consider the truth. What is seen by way of process, even this eye-door process, how many citta experience or object by its nature and by its function, only one single moment of seeing. But now, not single moment of seeing is there. So it's not known. This is what it's meant by how subtlety realities are unknown until right understanding develop at moment of understanding. Even one can condition another one. That is what is meant by bhavana, the development of understanding. No one at all. So Buddha said, Rupa nimitta, no one can change. Vedana nimitta, now the feeling, when it appears, not only one process. Nobody can change. Who can change? Because the realization of the truth, understand what is there as it is. So the world of nimitta, for sure, even right now. So just live in nimitta like in a dream, not know what is what, from life to life, something all the time, someone all the time.
So, Ajahn, how would you explain the world of concepts then?
Right now, can a single moment of seeing be experienced?
No, Ajahn.
And can one rupa be experienced?
Well,
Like
seeing
person?
consciousness experiences a single rupa, but then is followed by mind or processes which think about the things that
So
have been
which single
experienced.
one can be experienced?
Sorry, Ajahn?
So which one can be directly experienced? Only single one.
Well, the sense door consciousness experiences a single instance of its rupa, but
And
the thinking that follows doesn't experience a single instance of visible objects.
how many, at this moment, how many single moment of seeing is there?
So many.
So many. That is bandhati, seeing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there is the nimitta of one single reality, one kind, seeing, hearing, and anything must be nimitta of that single one. And more than that, when what is left is the nimitta of whatever arises and falls away can be known. And then the details, anupayanjana follows. That's why the world, the moment of ignorance are there. Sanyoshana bind up everything more and more. So very, very difficult to let go. Each one, because they're so enormous, uncountable. No one can measure how much is there. But from hearing the truth, one knows that it has to be parami, patience, and virya by conditions. Because who knows that how many moments the patient of virya cetasika arises with the reality which experience the object. Who knows? Even it's there now, right? As it is. But from learning little by little, there is a moment of understand different citta in a process of experiencing an object. But now, how many objects are there? Uncountable. The word of nimitta. Otherwise, there can never be letting go the idea of self when it's not sharp and very, very sharpness of understanding, very strong enough with viriya as parami and kanti as parami. Right now, there must be viriya and there must be kanti, and what parami is there? Nekama, knowing and seeing the benefit of understanding the truth, to let go wrong understanding. Otherwise, there must be wrong understanding from life to life. That's why each word should be understood clearly. Otherwise, it cannot let go the idea of self at all. Because there are conditions for attachment to arise all the time because of ignorance. Something there, see, at that moment, ignorance of the truth, condition like of that object to be attached, no matter what it is, even it's not known as anything at all, just appear. Is there already attachment with ignorance? That's why I'd like to ask the Thai or anyone, do you know Buddha? Really? How much? And Buddha means the great wisdom. Great, not just very little. Strong enough, firm enough to let go. What is there? What is the truth of it? It's gone. And without the vipassana jnana, how can there be more understanding of the truth? Even the first one is different from hearing and considering, because they are all the time that which is there as something. And is that true? When it's not true, what is the truth of it? Can it be known? Can it be realized? Such a barami is there. With adidana, determination, never shaken at all. From this way, right one, to the wrong one, impossible. When there's right understanding strong enough. That's why even right now, there is attachment that's clinging to the object, which is the sensuous object, and there's wrong understanding. At moment of taking it for something permanent, they are all unknown. Even they are there, so very subtle. That's why the understanding of the subtlety of what is there can condition the interest to study, to know the truth of it carefully. Otherwise, it cannot develop on the way to realize the truth, which is now gone all the time, unknown. But since it's true and it's there, appearing, there can be the understanding, studying, beginning to understand the truth, the first level of understanding. Pariyatti, firm confidence of the truth, which hasn't been directly experienced yet. That's why right understanding, only right understanding can know the difference between intellectual understanding and the higher one, patipatti, moment when it begins to understand the characteristic so very little because what is there is only intellectual thinking, understanding it, but it's not right. It's not like the moment of seeing and touching with directly understanding the nature of it, as we have heard, by conditions. That's why the path is so very subtle. If there is any desire or attachment to try, right understanding knows it is silapata pramasa, wrong way, not the right way at all. Is it clear now about nimitta, the word of nimitta? Because what is not nimitta is nibbana only. Because it does not arise, so how can that be nimitta?
Yes, so I think, Ajahn, that when you are referring to the eyes closed and no rupa appearing, no nimitta, it's like saying when the ears are closed or when any sense doorway is closed, meaning when there is no seeing or no hearing at those moments, no rupa is appearing, so there cannot be any, there's no nimitta of the rupa experienced at all. So that's why it's not relevant whether there's darkness seen when the eyes are closed, because what you're talking about is when there is no experience through that doorway. So I think sometimes this can be confusing for people. So I think that's quite clear now.
I mean, we missed the point. The point Ajahn was saying was that if I close my ears now, I cannot hear your voice. Or if I close my eyes, I cannot see the screen. And that's the point that Ajahn is making.
The point is that when that doorway is closed, it's a bit like the sutta about the different molehills. When one is closed, there's no experience through that particular hole, through that doorway, because there's experience through another doorway. So that is the point. And so that's why there cannot be, if the eye, that's what is meant when it said if the eyes are closed, then there's no nimitta of what is seen, or when there's no hearing, there's no nimitta of what is heard. So it's just a way of speaking, because otherwise, like there's a question on DSG at the moment, and someone is asking, oh, but you know, when the eyes are closed, there's still visible object being seen. But this is just talking literally about it. So it's, yes, so it's easy to miss that point.
May I have some questions related to this? So when we say nimitta doesn't arise and fall away, so when the vipassana jnana of arising and passing away happens, at that moment it is the arising and passing away of the real, of the actual reality, right?
It has to be the nimitta of the reality. So it's the direct experiencing of the nimitta of the reality that arises and falls away. The nimitta doesn't arise and fall away, the reality does. And this is the nimitta of that reality. So that reality is understood directly as arising and falling away by way of the nimitta. Without the nimitta, it couldn't be known. Like seeing, it can never be the direct understanding of seeing, because seeing only arises to experience visible object in the eye door process. So it can only be known through the mind door. So it's always the nimitta of seeing, but it's the direct understanding of that nature of seeing which arises and falls away by way of the nimitta, the sign of that characteristic.
Yes, but at the moment, before that, the Panya experiences the nimitta of the characteristic of, let's say, visible object. But when it knows the rise and fall of the visible object, it's still nimitta, but then it's nimitta of what? Of the rise and fall.
So it's the deeper, clearer understanding that understands more and more precisely the nature of visible object, not just the visible object as a Dhamma that is seen, but it understands the more precisely that visible object arises and falls away. But let's let Ajahn add more.
Okay, thank you.
Is this moment natural?
Yes.
And after seeing what is there, ignorance or attachment, but instead of ignorance and attachment, can there be the understanding? Otherwise, the understanding cannot develop, right? If it hasn't arisen at all. Instead of having attachment and ignorance, when there's the understanding, and when it begins to be direct understanding, it is different by the strength of that reality. Panya is there, strong enough to be able to arise instead of ignorance and attachment. So natural, as usual, as quickly, as rapidly as usual. Nobody can know. Who knows? It's just like now, just ordinary, seeing and then on and on. But instead of attachment and ignorance, right understanding can begin to understand the object. Is it possible? Because usually ignorance is there with attachment. But when there's enough understanding, strong enough to condition moment of being able to arise instead of attachment and ignorance as before, that's all. No difference. The difference is that instead of ignorance and attachment, it is right understanding and awareness. This is the way it developed. So natural. So true, because it's conditioned, not by anyone. There must be viriya and there must be sati and there must be hiri and ottappa there by its nature, conditioned by many different cetasikas arising together instead of attachment and ignorance. Right now, even it's not that level of direct understanding of our reality yet, but at moment of hearing, it's just exactly the same.
So Tom, what I understand Ajahn to be saying is that there's no change, there's no difference. Everything goes on the same. Like now, only the difference is that now it's ignorance, and if there's some understanding, intellectual understanding, there's panya. But that panya is of that strength, depending on the individual and accumulations. And for some, there can be satipatthana, and for another, there can be vipassana, but it's still the same. So the difference between satipatthana that's not vipassana is just the strength of panya, the level of panya, but the basic experience is the same. Like now, it's just that panya is so strong that it understands the rise and fall. Whereas if it's satipatthana of the beginning level, it still is too weak to understand that the reality, that the visible object, the characteristic of rise and fall is not apparent as in vipassana, but it's still the same like now.
And the understanding has to become more and more refined to understand it more and more precisely as it is, like now, talking about the reality of visible object. It's not the same panya that understands that reality exactly, and it's not the same understanding that understands it really clearly and which understands it as conditioned, and then even more clearly as arising and falling. So visible object, as you say, is exactly the same, but the understanding has to become more and more refined at different levels.
Yes, yes, I can see that. But I think here I'm not so sure about, I understand nimitta, because we say that because of the arising and falling away of the object, it leaves nimitta. So nimitta is not the arising and falling away itself, but it's because of the arising and passing away, it leaves the nimitta. So yeah, so I just wonder when the actual arising and falling away is experienced, we call that still nimitta. I'm a little bit confused about this point.
It's always nimitta. It's always nimitta of the reality that is experienced, because impossible to understand it without it being the nimitta of the reality. So just as the panya develops, it understands more and more precisely and more clearly the nimitta of the reality just as it is. And the truth about the reality, the truth about what is seen now, is that it does arise and fall away. The sound that's heard arises and falls away. So when there is the understanding of the characteristic of that sound or visible object by way of the nimitta, it is the understanding of it just as it is, more and more clearly.
Okay, and then I have another question. So when you talk about visible object, and another way to talk about it, it's light. So when there's no visible object, we say that there's darkness. But so I think that it's just a way of saying, right? Because there's no reality called darkness. It's just the light is not there, and there's another object is experienced, and it's not like now when we perceive light, but it's not real darkness like in when we talk about it in conventional way, right?
I think that whatever is seen is whatever is seen, no matter there's light or no light or a little bit of light or a hint of light. It's just what is visible, just what is seen. But this is it's a different point, as Ajahn mentioned, to the point being discussed before of when no visible object is experienced, when there's no nimitta of visible object. So, but still, now, no matter how little light there is, there's still visible object that's seen.
Yes, yes, yes.
I have another question. Am I still on? Yes. I have another question, and maybe going back over something we've already talked about, but the nimitta of a reality does not arise or fall away. So, for instance, in the first mind door process, after a sense door process, what is the object of that citta?
It's the nimitta of that reality, the reality itself. The visible object has fallen away, and what is experienced in the first mind door process is like the perfect replica or copy of that visible object, but actually it's the nimitta. So it cannot arise and fall away because the visible object itself has risen and fallen away. Right. So the nimitta doesn't arise and fall away, but it's the replica of the characteristic of visible object.
That can be the object of that citta.
Yes.
Like concept.
It has to be
the object of a citta. Yeah.
In the first mind door process, it has to be that exact replica.
Okay. So
And it
that
has
one,
to be the nimitta because the visible object
right,
itself has
it
fallen
falls
away.
away. And that nimitta is not a concept. The concept develops
So it's
with the
just
shape and form and all of that.
yeah, when as soon as there's the impression and then the thinking about that
Right. Okay.
visible object and the shape, the form.
Right. And if it's the seeing itself, if it's the nimitta of seeing itself, can it be followed by shape and form of seeing itself? No, I would think.
Well, the nimitta is usually referred, so it depends. So the seeing itself is the reality. So when the reality is experienced, the nama that is experienced in the mind, or it has to be the nimitta, it has to be even if it's the replica of the reality, it has to be the nimitta, and it has to, there has to be the attending to the shape, the form, the details through the mind or processes.
And that is that is also the case when, in this case, if it's the nimitta of seeing, it's the nimitta of a nama, not a rupa.
And I think the English word shape and form can be a bit confusing. I think that applies very well to rupas,
Right.
but when it comes to nama, although all conditioned realities must have nimitta, the word
Right.
shape and form doesn't seem to apply so well to.
No.
But
Sign works, but not shape and form.
Sign is
Sign and mark.
I
Right.
could just add that as far as I know, in the suttas, when it refers to nimitta and anupyanchana, it's always in the context of sense door objects.
Okay. Makes
And it
sense.
talks about not attending to the nimitta and anupyanchana. And it seems to be a reference, as far as I read it, to objects appearing through the sense doors.
Mhm. Sorry about that, telephone. I'm going to mute myself. Okay, no more phone. So right. So if I can see how that applies to the rupa, the sense objects. So for the nama, then it's really more just the sign or mark. Those words work better with nama.
These are all just translations of nimitta, so it's still just the sign or the mark. So whether it's referred to as the shape or the sign, it's just referring to the nimitta of the reality.
Okay, well, that clears it up, actually, though, talking about those distinctions there. Okay, thank you.
Can't hear you, Anne. Sorry. You've been muted.
Yes, I muted myself so as not to hear phones in the background, and I kept it mute because there was conversation anyway. I'm now free of background sounds, but I didn't have anything further on this.
Jan, I'll just come back to the sutta I was just going to mention, if you are there.
Yes, please.
Right. So this is a sutta in Anguttara. It's just very simple, but the words are the bhikkhus' bad, unwholesome qualities arise with a nimitta, so not without a nimitta. So in other words, as we know, all conditioned dharmas are sanimitta, and sanimitta is the word that is used. The commentary mentions with regard to sanimitta that it means sakarana, and sakarana usually means with cause. And the commentary goes on to say that that it refers to sakarana is the same as referring to nidana or hetu or sankara or pachya or rupa. These are all what is meant by karana, suggesting that the nimitta refers to cause or condition. Do you have any comment about this?
Yes, because you see that all depends on the reality itself, which is different, not as usual. For example, when we were young, we see it very clear, but when we're getting old, we cannot see as clear as that. Is it not the nimitta of seeing?
It is the nimitta, which and the kind of seeing depends on the cause.
No matter it's seeing or hearing or smelling,
Right.
tasting or touching, right?
Right. So it always depends on a cause. And then it goes on to say, with the abandoning of the nimitta, the pahana, these unwholesome qualities do not occur. So, of course, the nimitta itself doesn't arise and fall away. So it's not to be, it's not, so it's actually the reality, the akusala itself, which is abandoned. But it refers, so when it refers to the abandoning of the nimitta, it's actually referring to the lobha, the dosa, the moha, which is to be abandoned. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yes, thank you. That was all. Thank you. In other words, it's the abandoning of the kilesa known by the nimitta, but without any understanding, it's so easy to read any little sutta in the wrong way. And in another sutta, I don't have it just in front of me, they mention several, in the commentary mentions several meanings of nimitta, like it mentions samadhi, vipassana, and so on. But again, I think what is meant is that the nimitta, which is the object of samadhi, is different from the nimitta, which is the object of vipassana, because like we just mentioned, when it's the development of understanding, it is the understanding of the nimitta of the reality, or the nimitta of the rising and falling away of reality. Whereas in jhana, for example, the object is the nimitta of a concept that is experienced. So when they just say, oh, these are the different meanings of nimitta, samadhi, or vipassana, it's like a shorthand. So there has to always be the understanding of what is meant by the object.
Even samadhi or panya itself has different degrees. So each one can have the nimitta of such level.
It must have the nimitta of each level, yes. So of the samadhi and the panya, not just of the object, right? That's a good point, yes. So when it says, oh, the different meanings of nimitta are samadhi or panya, it's just referring to the nimitta of samadhi or the nimitta of panya, and so on.
if no one's got any questions, I've got a little story to tell, and it follows on from last week when I was talking about little deceptions with my granddaughters. So I've seen them through the week, and the older of the two, who's nearly 10, I talked to her about, does she know when I'm deceiving jokingly? And she said, yes, she did know. So during the day, we went away, we were playing. And of course, it's just a habit, I guess, of making jokes. And so every time I did, I'd look at her and she'd give me this scowling look, which was really funny, actually, because then what she did was put the same look on my phone as my lock screen. So every time I turn my phone on now, I have a reminder of this scowling little girl, and it's to remind me to tell no deceptive stories. So I thought that was wonderful.
So maybe she's the teacher.
Very well, it was very much so on the day that,
helping you to question what the cheetah is at such moments when teasing.
Maybe she just thinks your jokes are not good ones. They're bad jokes.
Well, that's a possibility, John. Yes, maybe she does. But I just thought it was a good story to relay after our little discussion last week. So maybe, I don't know if it'll come up, but does anyone mind if I just show on the phone? I don't know if it'll, no, it's not going to work because I'm using my phone as my hotspot. So it's probably best not to put a photograph of a scowling 10-year-old on a Zoom discussion.
You can show us next time. Make a
Yes.
copy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Teasing can be tricky too, because some children don't find it funny, don't enjoy it at all. And I think maybe that's her message.
Don't enjoy being tricked.
Teased.
Yes, well, I spoke with another friend just yesterday, and we were talking about particular grandchildren, and she has a grandson and whose mother teases him all the time, and she said he gets really confused by it. So what we think of as just lighthearted teasing is actually can be quite harmful to children.
Can be conditioned for a lot of dosa and yes.
Yeah, so it's a great reminder having this little photograph, and she's put it in black and white too. She played with my phone and she said it took quite a number of pictures until she was satisfied with a certain picture, and she set it up for me. So yeah, yes, it was good to realize that it is damaging to people, not just children, but even if it's said in a funny way, it's not. Maybe I've learnt my lesson.
I have something I came across for Tam Bak, if you're there, Tam, about the Indriyas, which you were asking about in one discussion. Are you there, Tam?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead.
This is from the Samoha Vinodani about the order, because you were asking about masculinity, femininity, and some of the others. And here about the order of the teaching, it says that since the attainment of the noble plane is through the full understanding of internal states, thus the I faculty, etc., which are included in the Attabhava are taught first. So eye sense, ear sense, those indriyas. After that, the femininity indriya and masculinity indriya for the purpose of showing the state on account of which the person is called woman or man, which is exactly what Ajahn said. So the masculinity or the femininity rupas are not apparent, but because of them, we know this is a woman, this is a man. And after that, the life faculty, the jivitindriya, for the purpose of making it known that although it's twofold, that is the Chaitasika jivitindriya and the Rupa jivitindriya, still its existence, Buddhi, is bound up with the life faculty. And then after that, the bodily pleasure faculty, etc. In other words, all the different feelings, for the purpose of making it known that as long as that person occurs, so long as there is no recession from these feelings, all that feeling is suffering. We talked about the importance of the different feelings and how any feeling is indriya. And after that, the faith faculty, etc., sada and sati and those other bojjhangas, for the purpose of showing the way, namely that these states are to be developed for the purpose of the cessation of suffering. And then after that, the enlightenment indriyas, for showing that the practice is not in vain, and so on, and how it is manifested. Anyway, I thought it was just interesting because it relates to the points that were made and discussed before. I think you are asking why masculinity and femininity were indriyas, because they don't condition anything else, but still they are indriyas, leading powers, because it's on account of them that this one is known as man or woman, and why all feelings are included because of the importance. But with those other states, the virya, the sada, and so on, it's referring to those which lead to the way out of dukkha. Anyway, more detail is given, but that's
for being indriya. So it's very helpful.
It's all on indriyas in Samoha Vinodini.
All leaders or all leaders in
leading
one way or
faculty,
another.
leading powers in their own particular way, in their own particular sphere.
So although the femininity and masculinity rupas cannot be experienced, their effect can be readily seen.
So just by curiosity, just thinking about, so when we see someone because of femininity and masculinity, that we know this a man or this a woman, and when we see children and even puppies or kitten, we also know that they are children, they're small children, but there's no reality that it's identify of what makes them look children, right?
Yeah, Tam, can you turn up your microphone? People are having difficulty hearing you. Thanks.
Okay, because it's up, but I think my internet has some difficulties. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? No.
Bev, can you hear it now?
Okay, can you
Little
hear me?
better, little
A
better.
little better? Yes.
Mm.
Okay. So what I was saying, that just by curiosity, nothing important. I was talking about masculinity and femininity help someone to help us to identify a man or a woman, something like that. And among all sentient beings like children, human and animals, we can also identify when that is a child, like a puppy or kitten or baby. And but there's no reality that helps you identify that, right? But so it's just some working together of different rupas. We have some ideas about this.
Different visible objects, different sounds, different, yes, different rupas, different memories of different signs and features and details.
The realities are all the same, aren't they? But they just appear in different kind of combinations. So you could say the same thing for an old person, that they act in a certain way that is characteristic of elderly people, but there's no particular reality which accounts for that.
Right.
So it's just, I suppose, the way things are, the progression from newly born and through the various stages of life until old age.
And Tom, taking the example of a baby, when you look at a baby, it's difficult to know, or just by looking, that it's a boy or girl, right? But definitely, because of difference in sex, that baby is, when he grows up or she grows up, the distinction will be there because it's different. One will grow up to be a man and the other a woman because of that, the femininity and masculinity.
Yes. So these two rupas have to be there at the moment of Patisandhicita. But how come that they become more apparent only later in life? Does that mean that they are conditioned in greater numbers later on, or what does that mean?
I don't think apparent here means that they must be apparent to the experience of seeing in terms of visible object. It may be some other way too, right?
Yes.
The way of behavior, the manners, the kind of movement, but also the visible object, the appearance of different features that we come to know as male or female, the shape, the size.
Okay, so leaving that aside, because you talk about aging, I'm also thinking about this. We know that Dhamma are conditioned by different ways. And one of those conditions, it's Pakatu Upanisaya Pashaya. And I'm thinking about understanding condition, more understanding, and kusala condition, more kusala. But on the other hand, we know that the more we become, we are aging, there seem to be not so, for most people, not everyone, but some decline decline in kusala and an increase in akusala. We can see that in many people, especially the moha, like the kind of moha chitta. So that must be due to other kinds of conditions as well. Do you have some comments on this point?
Let's see if Ajahn has any comments on any of these points.
About what again, please?
Maybe Sarah can help me to explain more clearly, because I'm not sure I expressed myself clear enough.
Well, the first point that she was asking about was the rupas, like in a baby, the masculinity or femininity is not clear, but then it becomes clearer later. And I think you were wondering why. And then the second point, you were talking about the different accumulations as one gets older and how it seems more ignorance manifests. But I think it depends. Like look at Ajahn at 95, more wisdom manifesting. So it just depends on different conditions, different accumulations. But anyway, I think those were the points she was raising. Ajahn, if you have any comments.
I think that the question is endless as long as we take it for something and someone, never understand what is there and what is better, to be reminded that how much understanding of the truth which has been heard about the truth. Otherwise, it postponed on and on and on, keeping delayed on and on and on to think about this and that. But the best thing is to think about what Buddha said and what he taught about this and that in order to begin to understand, because understanding is very rare and very little. It cannot arise alone by itself, but it needs more conditions for its arising. And the one is parami. At moment of talking about anything, is there any attachment? See, always unknown, around the corner all the time, and it has to be eradicated because it's a condition, the main cause or condition for being, arising again and again and again, as long as there are still ignorance and attachment. That's why I think that even while one is thinking, when Panya developed, it can understand that very moment unexpectedly. When will it arise, by what condition, is unknown, but the understanding of no one and no thing all depends on conditions. It keeps one to have less interest to understand this and that, which is not there as it is, but keep on thinking always more and more about this and that. But what about now? This is the most valuable moment to understand the subtlety of that which now arises and falls away. Each word of the Buddha is so true, and it can be directly experienced. But when there is the interest and seeing the value of the understanding of this very moment, otherwise, without understanding of this moment, how can there be more? Impossible. That's why even just one word about the truth of what is there is so very, very precious, because right understanding begins to let go wrong understanding. Otherwise, attachment is there with wrong understanding, on and on, never stop, non-stop at all in life. So I think that it's time we can talk about anything, but what about the understanding of that which is there? It can develop, it can understand it more and more and more. Little by little, better than just the story about it, each one as not self, but it now, each one is not self. And what did
Tan?
Buddha say about this?
Oh. No, please continue, Tanjan. I'll say something later on. Please continue.
All right. Say, please go on, Kun Sundra.
Just a moment. I was just going to say to Thom, well, first of all, I always appreciate questions, Thom. I think they're very perceptive and I find them very helpful. But just on the question of the elderly people, is that the way I read that is that because of declining faculties, when people are young, they have more attachment usually. And so their features can seem to be more enlivened. Whereas as people get older, especially when they haven't accumulated any wisdom, there are just more conditions for dosa and moha. I don't think it's that's the way I would read your question.
Thanks, Sundra, for pointing out the faculties. Yes, I think that's a good point because faculties are indriya also. So in this case, that condition also can affect the faculties as well. But I don't know more. I don't know about the akusala. So not the akusala has something to do with the faculties or not?
Well, what I meant was there was that the physical faculties, and perhaps it wasn't quite the word because we know that we use faculties in the sense of indriya. I wasn't so much thinking of indriya, but I'm sure they affect indriya when people's levels of ignorance, or by way of dosa, by way of moha, increases because their body is not functioning as how they would like it to. Although, yeah, and I do believe when we think of some of the faculties that they are related to that too. When you think of, I'm just trying to think of some of the faculties, but I'm sure they do buy into that because they're just dhammas after all.
Yes.
And just, I'd have to think about that a little bit more. And one time you asked about why we use the word faculty, because for indriya, it's quite a good word. It can be translated in many different ways, indriya, but faculties are those which facilitate. It's simply what it is. They are facilitators. That's, I believe, why that word is used there.
Yes, I think that is a good direction to consider more on this point.
It doesn't mean that one should stop talking about this or think about that, but it means that can there be understanding of the truth of that very moment? Otherwise, there has to be only that story and on without understanding. So the best thing is to understand what is there too, by conditions, not at will. Try not to talk about this or that. That is impossible. That is not the way, because whatever has arisen must be by conditions for such and such talk or events or doing or whatever. That's why no one can stop or can ask anybody that not to do this or not to do that. But what is the better thing? That's all. To condition understanding, the precious of understanding that it can be any time when there are and more understanding from moment to moment. That's why the understanding is the best among all Sankhara Dhamma. Because whatever is there at moment of talking or at moment of seeing or hearing, there can be the understanding of that reality as it is, to let go ignorance and wrong understanding, or taking it for self, which actually is there self? Is there really a self?
No, look, Tanajan, I always appreciate your reminders, and as I'm sure so many others do too, to enable us to remember what is the most important thing. And just recently, a friend of mine, an ex-monk, died, and I had another fellow ring me up and speak to me also about this matter. And he was speaking about Dhamma, and I really was struck by how it really wasn't about Dhamma. And I'm so grateful listening to you, Tanajan, regularly, that has helped me over the years. And I know, and when Maeve mentioned this the other day, that we're also grateful, because when you sometimes listen to other people talk about Dhamma, be they bhikkhus or whoever, and they haven't been fortunate to consider the Dhamma in the ways that you have shared with us, it's like, to me, it's like listening to something that's very, very, very shallow. And I'm continually appreciative, and I continually value the reminders that you give us. While there are the stories that we create, the stories that arise from moment to moment, a lot of the times in a very continuous stream, it's so easy to forget. And we're all very, very appreciative of your reminders of how valuable it is to consider what really is happening, what the present reality really is. So I just wanted to say that. As I said, I have been speaking with a friend who used to live in Sri Lanka also, and I was just reminded of how almost sad it was listening to this person. There was quite a bit of dosa listening, but however, those two are realities, and that's just the way things are sometimes.
Not forget that there is no one, only Dhammas. It can condition more wholesome realities.
Yes, no, that's a good reminder, Tanajan, a very good reminder. Sometimes ignorance gets in the way a lot, sometimes.
But when it's implanted, it can grow, develop more confidence of the truth, no matter when and where, death or birth.
Yes, so true.
And they were good reminders that we have an interest in this detail or this point, and a lot of the time it's just curiosity, and it's, as Ajahn said, one point after another. What are the details of the elderly or the birth or this or that? But what about the citta at this moment? What about the lobha? What about the curiosity right now? And when hearing the friend or hearing someone speaking with ignorance, but what about the citta at this very moment? It all comes back to now. And that's what's so very precious and beneficial. And this is the truth that the Buddha taught, that it's always about understanding what appears now.
Our time is
Thank you.
almost up here, but if anyone has, it'd have to be a very brief question, or maybe we just leave it now and look forward to next week.
Sawadika. Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you very much, Ajahn.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Ajahn. Sawadee Cup, everybody. Thank you.
กราบเท้าท่านอาจารย์
Yes.